guys, my name is Rochelle Mosley and I'll be going over the AP Chemistry Summer Assignment homework. I'll tell you guys how I did it, what worked best for me, and any tips that I use for chemistry, and I'll go over a couple of the answers from the AP Summer Review Practice Quiz. So like some of the harder questions that I struggled with, so hopefully you guys got it too. I first did the PowerPoint that she says to do on this paper. I first did the PowerPoint and I took notes on it, and I broke the notes up into like the parts, and for the most part it was pretty easy. Like I made sure to write down like the examples, and I separated into the parts, like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, just so it wasn't really like condensed. And I like drew the models or just anything else that really helped me. Like as you can see here in part 3, like I drew the models. I find it more helpful if it's like a visual, like you can visually see it, you know, it helps sometimes. Then yeah, I did that and everything, and I basically wrote down everything. Well, like not everything, but mostly everything, like because personally for me it helps to write down everything. But yeah, whatever works for you guys. And then after that I did the Summer Review Practice Quiz. It was different because usually I don't have to explain my chemistry answers, but I did for this, so that was a little different. And it's still on the second day of class, and on the third day we're doing a quiz. However that may work with the skills learning. Most of it was easy for the most part. It was just like you did the notes on it, and then you could go back to your notes and do the question, and that's what I used mostly for the explanations and things. And yeah, it was 30 questions. I guess I can do a couple of them just to show my thought process on how I did it. So I'll start with number 4. The answer was C. That was the answer I got, and it was calculate the following answer, which answer has the correct sig figs. It was this one, and I got 340, and I said the correct answer is 340 because the multiplication / division rule is that the answer always has the same number of sig figs as the number with the least amount of sig figs, if that makes sense. And like, so in this case it's 9.9, which has 2 sig figs, so the answer has to have 2 sig figs as well, which is 340. Because if you remember, trailing zeros don't count, aren't significant unless there's a decimal, and there was no decimal, and 340 was the only answer provided that gave 2 sig figs. So yeah, that was basically my thought process through that. I don't know if I necessarily used the right grammar, but yeah, it was during the summer. I'm still trying to get back into it. And then I'll do a couple more. 20. So 20 is the elements I and Te have similar average atomic masses. A sample that was believed to be a mixture of I and Te was run through a mass spectrometer which separates the sample by mass of the isotopes, resulting in the data below. All the following statements are true. Which one would be the best basis for concluding that the sample was pure Te? So this one kind of stumped me at first because like the answers weren't really correlating, but then I like thought about it because on the graph, I'll show you the question. On the graph, as you see the axis, it's relative abundance in the mass number. That's what like they were doing it by. And so if you look at the answers, you can start like crossing them off. And so it says Te forms ions with a -2 charge, whereas I forms ions with a -1 charge, and that has nothing to do with what the graph was, so I crossed that out, which was A. And then B, Te is more abundant than I in the universe, which can be true because the graph is based on relative abundance and mass number. So I kept that one. And then C, I consists of only one naturally occurring isotope with 74 neutrons, whereas Te has more than one isotope. Said nothing about that either, so I crossed that one out. And then the last one is I has a higher first ionization energy than Te does. And again, that had nothing to do with what was in the graph, so my answer was B. And that was like my breakdown process through it, of course. And so yeah, I did that for basically all of them. Like some were more analytical than the other ones. Like most of them I was just able to go back to my notes and like, oh, I got it, like it's right here, I found it. But then some of them were like a little harder. So it was just throughout the whole packet, I felt like it was just a continuous buildup of questions. Like they started off easy and then I started compiling. So sometimes you have to do 2 steps instead of 1. Like the previous question could have been 1 step from a concept and the next one was like 2 steps. So my advice is just to stick with it. So that would be good. And I also wanted to take a moment to talk about dimensional analysis because I know it's kind of confusing, but a tip that I always use, I'll do 11. So as you can see, I write it out every time. Like that really helps to write it out every time. And the question is, doctor's order is 0.125 grams of ampicillin. Liquid suspension on hand contains 250 milligrams per 5.0 milliliters. How many milliliters of the suspension are required? So I started with 0.125 grams. You want to get your final answer to milliliters because that's what they're talking about and it starts as grams. So you have to continuously go and just keep on transferring until you get to milliliters, if that makes sense. And a tip for me that I always use is whatever's on like the top per se, like the numerator, that same unit of measure is on the bottom. So because that's how it cancels out, it's like just cross multiplying. So like as you see, grams started up here, so grams is down there, and milligrams, milliliters, and then that's your final answer. Once you get to that final answer on the top, the units that you want, then that's when you stop. And personally helps me out because you can do that before you even really even like deal with the numbers, and that's kind of like just a nice setup that I use personally that helps me out on these types of questions because they can get very confusing and hard very fast, and so having that sort of layout is very helpful. And then you just need your conversion chart to know like which to do in which order. So yeah, that's how I was able to get through the summer packet. And then we also have to remember these. So I recommend using a Quizlet or like a guessing game, maybe flashcards or whatever works best for you. Like you can cut them out and put them on a flashcard and then just like do it back and forth. And then the ions, just Quizlet. I feel like that would be very helpful. She has one on the PowerPoint, as you guys probably have saw, and that has all the ions you need to know. And you can even star the ones you only need to know for the first one and focus on those and only test those. And then for the second quiz, star those ones. And then like only worried about the second one instead of learning all 6 at one time, because that can be overwhelming, of course. And then we have to know the difference between volumetric and graduated glassware. And basically graduated is everything with like the ticks, and you can get multiple measurements. And volumetric, you can only get 1 measurement, like it's only 1 solid measurement that you can find out. Like you can guesstimate it, but it's like the glassware specific for 1 solid measurement. So yeah, that's how I remember it. And yeah, that's basically all that I have to say about chemistry. But if you guys have any questions about the AP summer assignment for chemistry, you can comment them below and I'll answer them. Or if you even have my social media or something, you can contact me through that as well. And so yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun year. Chemistry is a fun class, so I think everything will be all right. But thank you for listening, and good luck this year, of course. Bye guys.